In part 1, we uncovered how Microsoft's founder thinks, learns, and leads. If you haven't watched that yet, you might want to check it out first. It sets the stage perfectly. But today, we continue the journey, because the next 5 stories, they get even more personal, more unexpected, and even more revealing. From a secret island wedding to his strange vacation rituals and how he turned a card game into a mental gym. These stories aren't just quirks. They're windows into the mindset of one of history's most strategic thinkers. So let's dive into part 2 of 10 untold stories that reveal the mindset of Bill Gates. 6. The Island Wedding. When one of the richest men on Earth decides to get married, you might expect fireworks, celebrities, headlines, and luxury on full display. But when Bill Gates married Melinda French in 1994, he didn't want a spectacle. He wanted privacy. And what he did to get it was straight out of a tactical operations playbook. The destination? A quiet, secluded island in Hawaii. Beautiful, remote, peaceful. But not immune to press, paparazzi, or airborne intrusions. Gates knew that. So he didn't just book a wedding venue. He booked the entire island. Yes, every hotel room, every guest space. Locked down, not a single journalist could sneak in because there was literally nowhere for them to stay. And then he looked to the skies. What if someone tried to get photos from above? So Gates rented every single helicopter on the neighboring island of Maui, not for use, but to ensure no one else could. No hotel rooms, no air access, no leaks. The entire island became a fortress of silence, also that one of the world's most public figures could have a private moment. This wasn't some flashy display of wealth. It was something deeper, a mindset. Identify the problem, map every possible variable, deploy overwhelming resources with surgical precision. It's the same thinking that would later define Gates's philanthropic empire, from eradicating disease to fixing global sanitation. That wedding on Lanai? It wasn't just a romantic getaway. It was a blueprint. Solve problems with force, foresight, and zero half measures. Because to Bill Gates, if something truly matters, you protect it completely. 7. The reading habit. In a world obsessed with speed, shortcuts, and hacks, Bill Gates built his empire using one habit that's neither flashy nor fast. He reads, constantly, systematically, like his life depends on it. From the time he was a child, Gates wasn't just curious. He was hungry. So hungry that he read the entire World Book Encyclopedia cover to cover. Not just flipped through, read. All of it. And that wasn't a phase. Decades later, he still reads 50 books a year. But this isn't casual reading with a cup of coffee. This is intense, structured, deliberate learning. He schedules reading time like a CEO books meetings. No distractions, no multitasking, just him and the book. And here's the part most people don't know. He writes in them. Notes in the margins, questions, counterpoints, reflections. He's not just reading, he's arguing with the author, engaging, wrestling with the ideas until they make sense. Science, public health, economics, history, fiction. His shelves hold no boundaries. Because for Gates, every field offers a lens. Every book is a puzzle piece to understanding the world better. And this isn't about leisure. This is how he solves problems, how he sees what others miss, how he prepared to lead Microsoft, and how he tackles global challenges today at the Gates Foundation. Will others chase noise? Gates seeks depth, quietly, daily, relentlessly. It's not glamorous, it's not fast, but it works. Because sometimes, the smartest man in the room is the one who never stopped reading. 8. Bridge and tennis. When you hear the name Bill Gates, you probably picture a tech titan, a ruthless competitor, a global philanthropist, a man buried in code, spreadsheets, or world-changing strategies. But step away from the boardrooms and billion-dollar foundations, and you'll find him in a very different arena. Bridge and tennis. Yes, cards and courts. Two hobbies that, on the surface, feel worlds away from Silicon Valley. But for Gates, they're not just pastimes. They're reflections of who he is. Let's start with bridge. A game of strategy, probability, partnership. Gates fell in love with it early, and like everything else in his life, he took it seriously. He studied it, practiced with the best, and even formed a long-time partnership with bridge legend Sharon Osbourne. Why? Because every hand is a puzzle, every bid is a risk, and winning requires not just intellect, but trust. It's not unlike business. You work with a partner, you gather incomplete data, you make bold decisions. Now shift to the court. Tennis. Gates is no casual weekend player. He's competitive, sharp, always analyzing the angles, the rhythm, the weaknesses in his opponent's game. He's played in charity matches alongside Roger Federer, soaking in both the joy of the game and the strategy behind every swing. On that court, that same intensity shows up. Not in software, but in footwork. Not in board meetings, but in baseline rallies. Because whether it's a bridge hand or a forehand, Gates is always trying to figure it out, always trying to win, but with precision, not power. These hobbies may seem small, but they offer a rare look into the man behind the mission. Not just the programmer, not just the philanthropist, but a mind that never stops solving, even when the stakes are nothing more than a game. 9. Borrowed brilliance. Not every great mind starts with a blank slate. Some start by asking better questions. And for Bill Gates, those questions have shaped an entire career, from building Microsoft to fighting disease across the globe. Whenever Gates faces a problem, whether technical, organizational, or humanitarian, his first instinct isn't to invent a brand new solution. Instead, he asks something deceptively simple. Who has dealt with this problem well? And what can we learn from them? It's not flashy, it doesn't make headlines, but it's quietly revolutionary. At Microsoft, this meant studying competitors deeply. What worked for them? Where did they stumble? And most importantly, how can we do it better? Gates never saw originality as the end goal. What mattered was outcomes. If someone else had already built a wheel, why not study it, upgrade it, and move faster? And this mindset only grew stronger in his philanthropic work. Take malaria, or polio, or sanitation. When the Gates Foundation stepped in, they didn't show up with grand, untested ideas. They looked first for positive deviance, places where the problem was already being solved better than expected. It could be a village in rural India, a research lab in Kenya, a government pilot program in Bangladesh. Gates and his team would study these examples ruthlessly. What were they doing differently? What made it work? And how can it scale? It's a framework built on humility, the belief that the answer might already exist, and our job is to learn from it faster than anyone else. In a world obsessed with being first, Gates chose to be effective, not for glory, not for credit, but to solve the problem for real. Because sometimes the smartest move isn't to invent the answer, it's to find who already has it and make it work for everyone. 10. The CEO who still wrote code. Most CEOs step away from the work that got them started. They trade code for contracts, keyboards for corner offices. But not Bill Gates. Even as Microsoft exploded into a global software giant, even when he was managing thousands of employees and billions of dollars, he never put down the code. Because at his core, Bill Gates wasn't just an executive. He was a builder. As late as 1989, long after Microsoft became a household name, Gates was still personally writing code that would ship in Microsoft products. Yes, the CEO was writing software for an early handheld computer's basic interpreter, just because the project fascinated him. This wasn't a nostalgia trip. This was who he was. But it didn't stop there. Gates regularly conducted brutally detailed code reviews.
He'd dive into lines written by Microsoft's top engineers, question logic, rework structures, and suggest alternatives, often better ones. Some developers feared it, others lived for it. Because when the boss can write better code than you bring your A game, every single time. It wasn't about micromanagement. It was about standards. Gates wasn't overseeing from a distance. He was right there in the trenches, elbow deep in the architecture of the future. And his presence sent a message, loud and clear. At Microsoft, software wasn't a side note. It was sacred. This culture, where technical excellence wasn't optional, came from the top. Because Gates knew, you can't lead what you don't understand. You can't inspire what you can't build. And when your CEO still writes code after building a billion-dollar empire, that's not management. That's leadership. So, what do these 10 stories tell us? That genius isn't magic. It's obsession. It's rigor. It's a relentless hunger to solve. Bill Gates didn't just build Microsoft. He built a mindset, a way of thinking that applies whether you're writing code or flipping pancakes. And if you take one thing from these stories, let it be this. The world doesn't belong to those who know all the answers. It belongs to those who never stop figuring them out.